passed out to you was some lecture notes. The first page is front and back, just for your convenience. The second page has some more lecture notes on it, which you guys will be filling in the blanks during our lecture. And then at the end of the second page, there's a few examples which we'll talk about more towards the end. Now, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about why do we do math? Why is it important? Why do we need to learn it right? Why do we need to teach it right? So, we're going to show you guys just maybe 15-second video, 20-second video on what happens when math goes wrong. This is a crane that doesn't have the appropriate counterweight. So, this is what happens when individuals mess up when they do math. Pretty crazy, right? So this is one example of why math is so important in the real world and why we need to teach it right and why you guys need to learn it right. So, and all of the math required to do that crane accident could have been prevented if they learned the basics, like factoring trinomials, which is our lesson for today.
Alright, so to begin learning how to do math correctly, we're going to start with some recall. So we're going to recall some terms that will help you for the rest of the lesson. Binomials. So binomials are a set of terms. Bi means two, so we have two terms. An x and then a constant, two terms. Next, trinomials. A trinomial, tri, 3, has three terms. X squared, 10x, and then a constant, 25. So three terms for a trinomial. Next, we have the FOIL method. FOIL stands for first, outer, inner, and last. So this method goes along with distributing two binomials. So multiplying two binomials together. So to begin multiplying these two binomials, you're going to multiply first your two x's together. Then you're going to multiply this first x with your 5 and your 6. And then you're going to multiply your 5 and your 6 together. So just to make things short, that would give you x squared plus, and then you're going to add 5x and 6x together, giving you 11x. Then 6 times 5 would be 30.
Alright, so now we're going to actually go into the main part of the lesson, which is factoring trinomials. And as Ms. Kingery just recalled with you guys, the FOIL method is going from two binomials to a trinomial. So when we're factoring trinomials, we're going back to the two binomials. So to factor this trinomial, it'll be in the form of x squared plus bx, which is a number, plus c, which is another. So that b is the sum of the two numbers in the parentheses, and then c is the product of the two numbers. So in the end, we'll be looking for the two numbers. It'll be x plus or minus a number in one parentheses, and then x plus or minus a number in the next parentheses. So we're going to start, though, with the product, because that will give us fewer numbers to choose from than if we started with the sum.
Alright, so let's try an example. So we have x squared plus 7x plus 12. So first, like Ms. Nichols said, we need to focus on the constant c first, right? So that's 12. So list all the pairs of numbers that multiply to equal the constant 12. So this is relatively simple, right? 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. So step 2 is choose the pair that adds up to equal our middle term, bx, which is 7, right? So what factors up there equal 7? James?
3 and 4.
Good. So now we just simply fill in the blanks. So we get x plus 3 and then x plus 4. Now, you guys already know how to FOIL, right? So if we want, we could FOIL this and then get our original trinomial back, which is correct.
Alright, so here we have x squared plus x minus 20. So here, you're going to want to focus on how there's a subtraction or negative sign in front of the 20. But first of all, we're going to start with listing all pairs of numbers that multiply together to equal 20. So can y'all help me out?
Just shout them out.
Alright.
4 times 5.
Okay. Alright, so out of these numbers, which add equal 8. Yes.
Good.
Alright, we did that. Okay, so we're going to use 2 and 10 to fill the number to fill our binomials. So, since 8 is positive, we're going to want to use the biggest term in these factors next to the positive sign so that our middle term will remain positive. So 10 will go behind the positive sign, and then 2 will go behind the negative sign. And when you FOIL those together, you will check your answer and come back to this trinomial.
Alright, so now we're going to the more difficult problem where the x squared term does have a coefficient other than 1. So this step 1 is a little different. So for step 1, we'll multiply the 3 and the 8, which is the leading coefficient and the constant. So 3 and 8 is obviously 24, and then we'll list all the pairs of numbers that multiply to equal 24, which are 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. You guys should already know this stuff. And then which pair adds up to 14? You just do that one.
2 times 12.
Right, 2 and 12. Alright, and step 4, this is when it starts getting a little tricky. We're going to write temporary factors with the two numbers. So we'll put x plus 2, x plus 12. Alright, and in step 5, we put the original leading coefficient under both numbers. So it'll be x plus 2/3, x plus 12/3. Okay? So then step 6 would be reducing the fractions. So we obviously can't reduce 2/3 any further. So that will stay 2/3, but we can reduce 12/3 to 4. And then finally, step 7, we're going to move the denominators in front of the x's. So then 3 will go in front of the x for 3x plus 2, and then there's understood 1 underneath the 4, and that will move in front of the x, so x plus 4. And for these ones, you really want to go ahead and always check your work for these, because it's a little, you have more to do for this one. So just go ahead, FOIL it out, and then you'll get the answer, and you'll see if it's correct or not.
Good, so that was kind of a walkthrough of a more difficult one. So this time, you guys are going to help me a little bit. So just like the first step on the last problem, we need to multiply our a term, in this case, which is 4. It's not 1 anymore, so we have to multiply it by our c term, 9, so we get 36, right? So then we have to list all the pairs of numbers that multiply to equal 36, just like before. So, guys, just shout them out.
6 times 6.
Good. What else?
4 times 9.
Good.
36.
Good.
3 times 2 times.
3 times 12. Good. Good. So, which pair adds up to 37? 36 and 1. Good. Pretty simple. Sorry. So now we, just like before, write the temporary factors with the two numbers. So we have x plus 1 and then x plus 36. Step 5 is put the leading coefficient, which is not 1 anymore, it's 4 underneath both of those. So we have x plus 1/4 and then x plus 36/4. And then reduce the fractions if we can. So 1/4 can't be reduced, right? So what does 36/4 reduce to? 9. Good. Okay, so then move the denominators to the front of the x. And so our finished product is going to be what? 4x plus 1 and then what? Anybody? X plus 9. Good. Sorry. Did it again. Okay. So always on these more difficult ones, you need to FOIL. If you trust your math skills, then I guess you don't need to. But if you FOIL back and you don't get your original trinomial, then obviously you did something wrong and you need to go back and fix it.
Alright, so here's one more example. You're going to help me out. So, what are some factors of 8?
2 and 4.
Alright, one more.
1 and 8.
Alright. Alright, so out of these factors, which add together to equal 6?
2 and 4.
Yes. Alright, so we are going to set up our binomials. So we're going to have x plus 2 and x plus 4. Alright, now will somebody help me FOIL these together so we can make sure our answer is correct? Yes, James.
So x times x, which is the first, is x squared.
Yes.
And then x times 4 is 4x. And 2 times x is 2x. And then 2 times 4 is 8. And you can add the like terms in the middle. 4x plus 2x to get 6x, which will leave you with x squared plus 6x plus 8.
Yes, good job.
Good job.
Alright, so now we're going to do the more difficult one. And so when we start out with this, we multiply what two numbers together? The leading coefficient and the constant, right? So we'll get 12. Okay, so then we got to find the factors of 12. What are the factors of 12? 2 times 6.
3 times 4.
3 times 4 and 12 times 1. Right. Alright, so then we put these in our temporary places. So you can go ahead and we'll make parentheses and do x plus 1. No, x minus 1, sorry about that. X minus 1 and x plus 12. Because the bigger one gets the middle sign, right? So we're going to put the bigger number with the middle sign. No, guys. It's 3 and 4, right? 3 and 4, sorry. You guys
So
said that
since there's a
wrong.
negative sign, we have to choose a term that adds or subtracts to equal our middle term, which is 1, right? So
Right.
3 and 4 subtracted, 4 from 3 equals 1. So those
Yeah.
are the ones we need to use.
Great. Alright, so then what do we do? Do you remember what we did next? We put the leading coefficient under the 4 and the 3, right? Alright, then we're going to reduce. So what's 4/6 reduced to?
2/3.
Okay.
Good.
And then what is 3/6 reduced to?
1/2.
Right. So then next, do you guys remember what we did next?
You take the denominator and you stick it in front of the x.
Yes.
Good
So
job.
we take the denominator and put it in front of the x, so then we'll have 3x plus 2 and then 2x minus 1. Right. So then what should we do? To make sure we have it correct.
We should FOIL it out.
Foil. Right. So let's foil it. Does anybody want to help me other than James?
Sure.
Okay. So what would be our first term?
3x times 2x would be 6x.
6x squared.
Yes.
Right. All right.
And then 3x times 1 would be 3x.
Make sure it's 3x times negative 1, so it'd be minus 3x.
And then 2 times 2x would be 4x.
Right.
And then 2 times negative 1 would be negative 2.
Right. Okay, so then when you simplify that, we would get what?
We'd get 6x squared plus 1x, or you just use the x, and then minus 2.
Yes, correct. Now these are, we got kind of combobulated with this one because it was just a lot to remember what to do. So make sure you take your notes home and you go through them, and we have more independent practices for you guys to go through and just make sure you slowly go through them and make sure you're doing it right. And then when you get to the bottom, always check. Always check.
Alright, so like Ms. Nichols said, you guys have 4 problems which you guys will work on for the remainder of the class. If you guys have any, you want us to do one, let us know. But let's just recap a little bit. We learned the difference between a binomial, which has 2 things in it, and then a trinomial, which has 3. You guys, this should be recalled from what you learned previously. We recalled about how you guys already know how to FOIL, so we're kind of doing that in reverse when we're doing what we did today. So it's kind of like the reverse FOIL method. And then so we learned how to solve one with a coefficient in front of x that's 1, which is kind of simple. You guys got that. But then we learned how to do one that has a coefficient other than 1 in front of x. So this should be something relatively new for you guys. I know it's a bit challenging, but I know you guys will get it. So just work on those for the remainder of the class, and then that's our lecture for today. So thanks.